Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome to another episode of the Striker Tejas Podcast, part of the Striker News podcast network. I'm so happy to be back for another week to talk about everything that's going on within our Texas USL teams. Obviously, we've got, well, actually, we don't have the full squad, unfortunately. Today, Roberto is MIA for today. Hopefully, we can have him back next week. Thank you, MLS All-Star game. But we've got our team of reporters present al pie del cañón, como lo marca y dicta el reglamento, as we say in Spanish. First, I want to go ahead and go up I-69 and say hello to my friend Jonathan Check. How are you going?
It's going all right. Yeah, like you said, no Roberto tonight because apparently the MLS All-Star festivities are more important than podcasting with us wonderful people talking about the great stuff going on in the lower leagues of American soccer and some of the maybe not so great things that are going on with the lower leagues of American soccer. For anyone who hasn't heard about the whole kerfuffle with Orange County and LA Galaxy trying to kick them out of their stadium, that's not a good look for LA or MLS. But yeah.
And we can probably talk a little bit later on in this episode. By the way, oh man, my hand hurts. By the way, I do have to admit, I just came back from playing soccer, and I have to say that I yelled at the referee today because somebody kicked me in the hand, and the referee didn't want to stop the play, considering that I was a goalkeeper. That's a big no-no. But anyway,
goalkeepers always get the benefit of the doubt. What the heck?
This time it didn't, and I got mad at him. But anyway, kids, don't do what I do. Okay, if any kids listening, don't do what I do. Learn. I'm telling you. Anyway, let's go all the way over to the borderlands and say hello to our friend Joe Rodriguez. Joe, how you doing?
What's going on, Edson? Jonathan, good to be back with you on another edition of the Striker Tejas. Yeah, no, I'm just hopefully we get to talk about it, but pretty much echoing the same sentiments that our good friend Jonathan is echoing. I barely came to find out about what was going on with the OCSC ordeal out in the city of Irvine yesterday, about middle of the day, you know, it's hopefully things at the end of the day turn out to be you know, karma sides with what is right, and I think it's very evident what is right in this case, where you know, the little guy hopefully prevails in this battle.
So let's go ahead and give a little bit of context about what we're talking, because I feel like this is you might say, oh, well, this is just something that's happening in California. Why does it pertain to us Texas USL teams? Like, no, I think this is something that can happen to anybody in lower league soccer in today's world. So basically what's going on is it was leaked that the city of Irvine in their most recent board meeting, there was a statute, or they were going to go over an agreement that out of the blue, AEG, the owner of LA Galaxy, had proposed to the city of Irvine to maintain exclusive use to Championship Stadium, which is currently home to the current USL Championship champions, Orange County SC, as well as Cal United Strikers, and I think one more team in NISA, if I'm not mistaken. But basically, there was a lot of pushback from fans of lower league soccer, considering the fact that they were not at all a part of the process that needed to be taken between any interested parties in leasing Championship Stadium from next year on. And like Orange County was planning on renewing that. And then, like I said, all of a sudden, like secretly they added that agenda item, and so word got out, and obviously there was a lot of pushback. Right now in the board meeting, there are a lot of Orange County SC fans that are currently, you know, voicing their concerns to the board, to the city, as well as even like I mentioned to Joe before we started, Glasgow Rangers, who OCSC has a partnership with currently Scotland, if I'm not mistaken. They got involved in this as well. So, obviously, I think if we want to voice our opinions, I think that was a huge low blow from AEG and LA Galaxy. Maybe even MLS, considering that they are a single entity system. But I don't know if you guys want to say anything else.
Say that last part again. Say that last part.
I don't know if you want to say anything else, Joe.
No. Say that last part again.
Okay. Considering that MLS is a single entity system.
Say that again.
Single entity system.
Yeah, and that's why I can't. Yeah, that's why I'm a casual fan, to say the least. No, but no, absolutely. And the thing is also, the thing that irks me, that just rubbed me the wrong way as soon as I found out what was going on, was obviously LA Galaxy's prepping to go to become another one of the teams in what is the MLS's latest venture, which is their MLS Next league or division. And one of those things is when this came about and this was announced by what is the first division in soccer here in the United States, it was a general understanding, and they made it seem as we are doing this not to be in direct competition with any other soccer leagues that compete at, for lack of a better purpose, at a lower division than the MLS. We are simply doing this to grow the level and the talent within our league so that our league can prosper. That's all fine and dandy. But this kind of move goes 100% directly against that declaration. And that's what I have a problem with, Stay in your lane, do what you got to do, whatever benefits you. I think the powers that be in the USL has always, and I'm talking about President Jack Edwards and everyone else, they've always been very good at staying in their lane. Whenever they talk about changes within the league at any level, it's about trying to grow their league, not at the expense of anybody else. Probably smart, because you know who you're going up against, and you know what you have in your arsenal as far as just financing and monetary power or whatever. But they stay within the context of what their vision is, and it's just, and that's what I respect about that. The MLS, it's just like I said at the opening of our podcast. I hope karma and at the end of the day things side with the little guy in this case.
It's funny that you mentioned, before we go with Jonathan, but I do want to mention, that it's funny how you mentioned that in the beginning MLS was like, oh yeah, this is only going to be between us, this will not affect independent soccer. But then right off the bat, they go and grab the former Rochester Rhinos, or the team formerly known as the Rochester Rhinos, and lured them into MLS Next Pro. And now there's rumors that they're starting to poach interested teams that were planning on joining USL in any of their divisions. And now they're trying to lure them into MLS Next Pro. So when them saying in the beginning that they weren't not going to poach, lower division soccer, I think, it's shown that they were not really sincere with that statement. Jonathan.
Yeah, so like Joe said, it's really funny how MLS acts like it's going to stay in its own lane. And LA even said, for those who haven't been keeping up, at thestriker.com, Alex Ruiz, the LA Galaxy reporter that we added a year ago, he's done a couple articles on this situation. And the latest is Monday afternoon or evening, I guess, the Galaxy released a statement basically backtracking, saying, oh, no, this wasn't what we wanted to do. We weren't looking for exclusive use to the stadium, which basically, if you read between the lines, says, oh, we didn't expect this much blowback. Okay, maybe we'll be quieter about this. If this were to happen, it just sets such a dangerous precedent of MLS teams just trying to bulldoze their way in. And something that's been mentioned is, it's not even just we'd like to use the stadium, it's for the financial losses that you incur because of this, City of Irvine, we'll cover those. We'll just pay you, essentially bribing them to, not have to worry about losing the funds. But to get rid of an actual community club in Orange County SC and, Cal United Strikers, and I think it's a League Two team that also plays their matches there, to just shove them out of the way, to pull the rug out from under them. And it's interesting because this is also the latest chapter and probably one of the most bitter yet in the divorce between MLS and USL. 8 years ago, I think, was when LA Galaxy 2 became the very first MLS reserve team to join the USL. Mm-hmm. And a bunch of others started joining. But then I think once USL went second division and, the between that and just a better player pool, there have been the league has just gotten progressively better, and those teams have kind of gotten left behind because it's these 16, 17, 18, 19, 20-year-old guys who just can't compete with the higher level, and these MLS teams just haven't been putting as much behind these teams. I mean, not that they were really putting much into them to begin with, but this is just the latest chapter in the two splitting apart, and clearly MLS, or at least certain franchises, are not playing nice anymore. And it's really sad to see. It's a good thing that for now, this seems to have been pushed back. And, we were even talking before how, if not for a certain part of Orange County's statement regarding this issue, a lot of Galaxy fans would have kind of been on their side saying like, whoa, yeah, we don't want to get rid of you guys. But for those who didn't hear, Orange County kind of dissed LA Galaxy, basically said they had lost the LA market to LAFC over the last few years, which, they're not wrong.
I mean, you have to consider also that OCSC used to have a partnership with LAFC, so.
Well, yeah, that was something I remembered. But I don't know how long that was.
Yeah, but then again, that's just petty. Regardless of that, you have to know that this is a wrong move for soccer in general in the United States. As much as they want to drink the MLS Kool-Aid, this is horrible for community soccer, for local soccer. And, we talk about how we have to support local soccer, and, these are the kind of moves that goes against that mantra. So hopefully it gets resolved. I might put on my tinfoil hat right now, like I was mentioning before, but there was like he mentioned, LA Galaxy kind of backtracked, and then the City of Irvine did mention, we removed that from the agenda. And regardless of that, a lot of fans showed up today, to that board, to that council meeting, which I applaud the OCSC fans, honestly. And I'm glad they did, because I felt like this is one of those things like, oh, you caught us, we're removing it, but then we're going to try again when everybody forgets, when this blows over, we're going to try again. Hopefully nobody leaks it again, and try to pass it, underneath the table. That's just me, putting my tinfoil hat on. I don't know exactly what's happening, but this is.
And the end-all, be-all argument, and the last thing I'll say about it before we get onto our games and our topics and our teams, the end-all, be-all argument is, I have a feeling that this city council for the city of Irvine, you dangle the nice, flashy tinfoil, paper in front of them, and all of a sudden they're like a baby kitten. They're attracted to it. Oh, the LA Galaxy and MLS team would rather come into your place as opposed to a USL team, and all of a sudden, okay. The end-all, be-all argument to me would be like, okay, let's compare attendance figures.
LA Galaxy doesn't even open up attendance.
Exactly. What makes you think, or to ask LA Galaxy, okay, what's your marketing strategy? If obviously you want to come into our field, what's your marketing strategy to appeal to the city of Irvine and get fans in here? I bet you they don't even have one.
Mm-hmm. No, I definitely agree, but we'll see what happens in the next couple of minutes or hours. And but as always, be sure to pay attention to the Striker Texas news at thestrikertexas.com. But moving back to
the striker. We're getting used to it. We're all getting used to it.
Yeah, we'll get used to it. Honestly, I was about to say let's go back to Texas, but all three of us played in California. So staying in California, but moving to different cities. Like I mentioned, all three Texas USL teams in the last weekend, they played in California. The first of these games were El Paso Locomotive visiting Monterey Bay Union FC at Cardinal Stadium. And unfortunately, El Paso is still on that slump that we talked about last week's episode, with getting shut out again. So, Joe, what's going on with El Paso?
They need to put the ball in the back of the net, obviously. I think, obviously, going well over 360 minutes without scoring a goal, is problem number one. On Saturday night, up in Monterey in Northern California for the El Paso Locomotive, I mean, they just, soccer is one of those funny things, and I think the people that listen to our podcast are well versed and educated enough in the game that we talk about, or in the sport that we talk about, to know that you necessarily can dominate an opponent and not get a result. And I think Saturday night was a perfect example of that for the Locomotive. I mean, they just dominated in every way, shape, and form. El Paso did over Monterey, but with minutes to go, I believe 87th, 88th minute, breakaway down the flank, cross, balls in the back of the net for the visiting team. And that was pretty much all she wrote. El Paso today at media availabilities, talking with John Hutchinson, offensively, in the offensive third, El Paso even grew a little bit. They were trying a little bit more to play down the middle, as opposed to being dependent on flank play. But still, they had opportunities to score. They just couldn't get the ball in the back of the net. El Paso's awarded with a penalty kick. Luis Lucho Solignac is the one that gets the ball to put, to execute this penalty kick. And he kicks it over the crossbar when he's trying to kick it, the penalty kick, Panenka style. And that's just the way things are going for this team right now. Obviously not accumulating any points in the last four matches for El Paso Locomotive, with the regular season coming to an end. Entering the home stretch is what's bigger, the biggest concern for this El Paso Locomotive side right now. After this last weekend is matches, El Paso Locomotive is currently sitting in seventh place with 33 points, 2 points in front of LA Galaxy 2, who has one game in hand on El Paso Locomotive. So yeah, things are getting interesting here. And one of the last things I just want to end with is today I was after media availability, I was speaking with Derek Fox, the director of communications for the Locomotive, which, by the way, he'll be moving back to Utah this weekend. This Friday will be his last day as part of the organization. Best of luck to Derek, and it was a pleasure working with him this entire time. A great guy, and I'm going to miss him. But Derek and I were talking, and one of the things that I found really interesting for the Locomotive is, I don't think in the 4 years that the Locos have existed, they have ever won a game when they are the inferior team. And that's just very much bad luck. I recall games that they've lost to San Antonio, to New Mexico United, to RGV last couple of seasons, where it's a 1-0, 2-1, 2-0 match. And yeah, those teams that I just mentioned, San Antonio, New Mexico, RGV, they deserve the win. Sacramento, et cetera, the list goes on. They deserve the win. But I don't think El Paso has ever won a game where it's like, yeah, you were the worst team, you had one, you put it away, and that's it, the game's over. And right now, I think El Paso would even take that as far as just to break this losing streak. Does it say a lot about El Paso and the quality of, their execution, the way they've played over these last 4 years? Yeah, but I also think you kind of need that from time to time, and it's something that El Paso, unfortunately, has not been able to come by.
Yeah, so I guess just if I want to chime in here, like, it's so weird how El Paso at one point had the longest what's it called, unbeaten streak in the league at like 10 matches, and now suddenly it's 4 losses in a row. And yes, you play a couple of good teams, the top team from each conference, and then you play away in California for 2 matches. But is it as simple as El Paso just not having their shooting boots on at the moment, or have there been other changes? Because it's so weird to see that sudden contrast, that sudden downturn.
You know what, Jonathan? I think what a bigger concern is, in a bigger analysis of what this entire season has been, the whole body of work. One thing that I don't think I've ever mentioned so far this season, I've had it with me. I sure haven't discussed it with any player or Hutchinson himself. But the thing that I find the most concerning is if you take a look at the Locomotive's results thus far this season, they have yet to beat a team that they've played that's in the top 5 positions in the conference standings. That says a lot about maybe your team might not be that good this season as you might think that they are.
Yeah, but I mean, you got to get the results against the inferior teams. I mean, yeah.
Oh no, and they have up until this last streak where they got rolled by Oakland and they got beat by Monterey. They've done that. That's how they've accumulated their points.
Mm-hmm.
But they haven't, they beat Phoenix for the first time in franchise history, and then they beat them in the Valley of the Sun. Phoenix is having a terrible year. They tied, I think, as usual, to the defending champion, Orange County. What kind of year are they having? The only win that stands out as a quality win, if this was college football, would be Colorado Switchbacks here at Southwest University Park, and that started a 4 or 5 game losing streak for Colorado Switchbacks. So they didn't get them at their best.
Now,
I think I know SAFC last week was trying to take credit for starting that downturn, but do you remember exactly when that match was?
Like you were saying, Jonathan, that victory against Colorado Springs was in the beginning of July 9th, which seems with this current streak right now, that July 9th match seems like a very, very long time ago.
Yeah, so that was kind of a few weeks into the Switchbacks downturn, but it's kind of about getting these teams at the right time, and Phoenix has started to kind of turn things around, but at the time that El Paso beat them, they were not in a good run of form. They so uncharacteristic for Phoenix, because they're, like I always say, a perennial contender, but there's a saying that a clock is right twice a day.
A broken clock is right twice a day.
Exactly. I don't know what the opposite of that is, but I guess that's what Phoenix was going through earlier this year.
So one final question before we move on to the game by San Antonio in San Diego. Joe, you were there. You mentioned you were there at practice today. Do you feel like the environment within Hutchinson's staff or the squad, do you think that maybe pressure's starting to mount up within the environment?
I don't think it's palpable by any stretch of the imagination. You can't really tell. Today, Hutchinson was adamant. The team today, their training yesterday and today, training was okay. He acknowledged that the team still hurt. And I'm using those quotes exactly. He said the team trained okay today. The team was still hurt because of what happened this weekend, the recent form. But he was very adamant that the team still controls their own destiny, and I guess to a certain extent they do. A couple of more results, like lackluster results, and that I don't think that might be the case with the matches running out in this regular season. But Matt Boehner, we spoke with him today, and defender Matt Boehner, he did say, he goes, there was an elevated sense of urgency, I think, to get out of this rut. Obviously, with only 9 games left for the Locomotive this season, 27 points. I don't know about magic numbers, but I'm thinking maybe with them sitting.
You muted yourself, Joe.
With the Locomotive trying to, with 9 games left in the regular season, the Locomotive have 27 points available. I think there's got to be a magic number that I'm sure is in their head as far as what they need to accomplish over this next 9 matches and that body of work. But as far as a sense of urgency, I think the team attitude is still present that, they can overcome this and they'll make the playoffs.
So moving on to the next match, we transfer over to San Diego, and I think this has got to be the results that shocked the USL this past weekend. San Diego whomped San Antonio FC 3-0 at Torero Stadium. What happened, Jonathan?
So it's funny to call this a shock because honestly, I came out of it saying it's something we've seen, fairly often on this podcast. SAFC will get, maybe not necessarily comfortable wins, but like wins where they defend well, they get the goal or two they need, all that. This week, it was another common trend in terms of results where you see SAFC, particularly with a lot of players on offense out injured, or in Santiago Patino's case, suspended. Elliot Collier still out injured. Ignacio Bailone suddenly injured on the injury list. Don't know what happened there. Patino, like I said, suspended. So SAFC was just very threadbare on attack and only had 2 forwards on the field for the match. And I don't even think they had another really on the bench that they could have brought on. Or if they did, they didn't. I want to say Kai Luvier might be a forward, but he's also an academy player. They're probably not going to want to play him away against San Diego. But it was just one of those matches where SAFC doesn't have enough going forward to kind of relieve the pressure on the defense. And eventually, against the league's best offense, playing away to the league's best offense, you're probably going to concede some goals. And I don't know if you guys know, but all 3 of the goals happened in the last half hour. So SAFC was holding firm, and some people have speculated they were kind of just setting up to try and defend, eke out a draw, maybe get a goal on the counter. That's a really dangerous game plan against, like I said, the team's the league's best offense. And eventually it finally caved in. SAFC starts maybe chasing the game a bit, trying to get that goal back. They go down a second goal and then a third. And so this is not a scoreline or a pattern of play that we haven't seen this year. It's just occasionally SAFC doesn't have enough going forward to relieve the pressure. And as good as that defense is, it's not perfect. And being able to defend for 90 minutes sometimes is just too much. And this was not the team that you want to try and do that against. So you can maybe question, if that was Marcina's plan to try and be very defensive and maybe eke out a draw or something. Maybe question that, but at the end of the day, it's one bad result. And I've said in recent weeks, it might be good for SAFC to kind of get that out of their system. And SAFC still leads San Diego by 4 points with a game in hand at the top of the Western Conference. Now, things are a little tighter when you compare Louisville City. I know that's a long way down the road. That's the USL Championship final, if it happens, if the two meet up. But SAFC is still in the best position in the league of any team.
I was gonna say, Jonathan, if there was, such a thing as a quality, when we're talking about quality wins, I brought up that phrase right now, talking about the locomotive, if there's such a thing as a quality loss, and if this would be, if this is it. But I've always been a big believer in, I don't like positive streaks going way too long, because when that loss comes, and it will come just because of the law of averages, it always seems to come at the most inopportune time. So maybe this loss will settle down San Antonio a little bit and just force them to look at things a little bit different, where they might not have been, to try and improve as they come into this home stretch of the regular season.
Yeah, definitely. I think San Antonio is probably kind of touch base and see, maybe a lot of times maybe the past results, you didn't, because of how the results came, you didn't really notice maybe some things that you've never been into. Like, for example, in this case, the fact that San Antonio was holding on, and then all of a sudden, like when the game's about to end, you get scored on, and you start to see where maybe the players kind of lose control of their what's the word I'm looking for? They lose control of all the organization that they had, and that opens the door for San Diego to go in and score even more. That's why it's always said, at least in Spanish, Joe, you probably heard this, that the goal is the tactician, right? El gol es el táctico, yeah, because when you get scored on, now you have to open up. Like if you're holding back, if you're parking the bus, I'm not saying that San Antonio parked the bus, but if you're parking the bus and you get scored on, now you have to go open up. You have to move your lines up to be able to try and get an equalizer. And what that's going to happen, you're going to open up more spaces, and especially with a high quality offense such as San Diego's, that is a bad
okay. But see,
equation.
But I guess that should have been my first question to Jonathan. Jonathan, was the second and third goal, in your opinion, were they more circumstantial because of what Edson is referring to, or was it a little bit of just kind of maybe just a breakdown in defensive execution like you haven't seen from the San Antonio side all year long?
Yeah, I think it was kind of just a bit of a breakdown. Like I kind of said, defensively, SAFC just got worn down over the course of this match. And, again, it was kind of just because they couldn't really relieve the pressure. So if you're defending for the majority of 90 minutes, you're always going to have some problems. And the first two goals were scored shortly following set pieces, corner kicks, if I'm not mistaken. And it was just kind of crosses into the box, and SAFC somehow was not there to deal with either one of them. I don't know if that's just poor defending, not being in the right places, or if San Diego was just that precise. But and then the third goal, scored from the top of the box, put in the bottom left corner. You need to maybe close the guy down a little better. But at that point, 2-0, 3-0, what's the difference at that point? And it's something that SAFC has experienced a couple times this year, particularly in both games against Phoenix Rising, both of them losses, where, it hurts your goal difference, but if SAFC is kind of hoping to get a goal in the counter, maybe get back into the game, you're kind of taking that risk. So
moving on to the final match that happened this past weekend.
Speaking of conceding late and losing your composure.
Yeah. I'm speaking by experience, right? I mean, what's the same old story of our RGV many times this season. But anyway, so RGV played against the U.S. Open Cup finalist, Sacramento Republic FC, at their stadium. It was going to be a very difficult match, right? For considering the momentum that Sacramento was carrying. But also, Sacramento had a huge workload in the last couple of weeks, playing midweek matches. That game against Sporting Kansas City in the semifinal, that went all the way to penalties, right? And then you play that Saturday, you play against New Mexico on Wednesday, then on Saturday have to play RGV at home. And RGV honestly held on well. They limited Sacramento Republic to 0 shots on target in the first half, and RGV had some shots, right? They weren't really accurate, but they had at least 1 shot on target, I think, in the first half. Come the second half, obviously, the coach for Sacramento didn't play with his best 11. They had Rodrigo Lopez on the bench, to give him a little bit of rest. But you knew right off the bat that he was going to go in, especially, when they needed to get a goal after Jonathan Ricketts scored a very good golazo that is actually, it was nominated for Goal of the Week. But this happened in the 53rd minute. So early in the second half, RGV takes the lead, and Sacramento they managed to get more possession. They were able to hold on possession, but they didn't really have a lot of opportunities. However, RGV started to get tired. They started to lose the midfield, but Wilmer, being Wilmer, held his second and third and fourth substitutions until the 84th minute and in stoppage time, and it was until the 90th minute where Wahab Akwe loses, track of Rodrigo Lopez, and Rodrigo Lopez hits the ball into the net, and they were able to salvage an equalizer it gives the Toros 1 point in a difficult environment. But at this point in time, RGV needs 3 points. And, I was talking to some of the players before the game on Thursday in practice, and they were mentioning, I was talking to Christian Pinzon. I asked him about the environment of Sacramento and what were the coaches kind of, or the leaders kind of telling the younger players, so they don't get controlled by the fans. And he was mentioning that really it was one of those things where they enjoy it, right? They enjoy playing in those kind of environments. It kind of hypes them up, even more to try and prove to them that they can that they can get results, despite being at a disadvantage. They felt that once they scored one, it felt like it was going to open the floodgates for the following games, and that if they were to get a win, it was going to make a huge statement to the rest of the USL come the rest of the season. Overall, it wasn't a bad result. But as I mentioned, RGV needs to go for the 3 points, and they need to maintain their concentration for the 90-plus minutes. I mean, the defense isn't bad, and we've talked about it that there's only few instances where it's more consistently bad defending. But overall, they maintain organization. They're able to limit the chances by the other teams. I mean, even then in this game, I think they only had one shot on target the whole game, or 2 shots on target the whole game, right? But it's those lack of concentrations when they need to be concentrated the most. That's what kills RGV, and that's why they have not been able to get the results that they need. And they really need to get that under control if they want to make it into the playoffs.
Yeah, and for what it's worth, just to chime in a little bit here on this, you're right. It wasn't a bad result. Again, as we've discussed, El Paso and San Antonio lost. So at least RGV came away with a point. Could have been 3 if not for that late equalizer. But RGV needs to start winning. Yes. They needed to hold on to that. When I was doing my USL recap piece, something I noticed is 7 is kind of the magic number. That's how many points out of the playoffs RGV is. And that's how many matches in a row that they have not won. You need to start picking up points and wins. And if they do, not only do you push up in the table, maybe get above the playoff line, but you enter the playoffs on a hot streak. And by the way, that's what RGV did last year after kind of a mid-season slump. They hit their form again at the end of the season, knocked off Phoenix Rising in penalties, I believe, in the first round of the playoffs. So if they can start getting those wins together, the sky's the limit this season.
Yeah, definitely agree with that. I think the overall the players are knowledgeable, right? That they haven't been doing great results wise, but they are very confident in what Wilmer Cabrera is trying to instill, and that they're trying their best to get out of this slump and start putting goals on them. And for them, that's been the difference why they haven't, especially at home.
And if I was a Toros fan, I know I'd be thinking about, once again, Edson, you've talked about it all year. And no, actually, you haven't talked about it all year. I don't think you've ever mentioned a break going the Toros' way all season long. And I think that also, you guys are due for something like that. And hopefully that'll also to kind of spark something and get things going. I mean, and you talk about how they just, they struggle with on target attempts. And sometimes you can only do so much of that before it starts turning around. And with the games that the Toros have left, I mean, I think it's going to be interesting, and I think they're due, and it wouldn't surprise me anything, at all in any way, shape, or form if they do make a late season run to try and just steal a playoff spot.
Yeah, definitely. But we'll see what happens. RGV does have a bye this weekend, so they don't play until the following Wednesday against Phoenix Rising, which leads us to our everybody's favorite segment, which is giving our predictions to how many points the Texas teams will be making. Actually, before we do that, we need to understand what games were happening and what we are expecting from those games. So first of all, we've got on Wednesday, you've got San Antonio playing Loudoun United. On Friday, the El Paso Locomotive will be taking on Colorado Springs Switchbacks. And then on Saturday, San Antonio will be playing against Las Vegas Lights. We'll start with Jonathan, since it will be the first game. You can talk about both if you want, but what are you expecting from these two games?
Yeah, I mean, I can kind of lump them together in a sense. Two MLS2 teams, two games at home for SAFC. Most interestingly, for the Wednesday game is after what happened this past weekend, whether or not SAFC, I've heard some people suggest that maybe they didn't want to show all their cards against San Diego yet. I don't know about that. You don't want to, obviously you want to win every game, but you don't want to kind of ignore or throw some away. But regardless, they just got beat 3-0. They're probably going to want to come roaring back. Loudoun is, depending on the team that they send out to Texas, particularly with away matches, these MLS2 teams sometimes don't have the best players at their disposal. But then again, it is MLS All-Star week. So I don't know. You could see some fringe DC United guys on Wednesday. Who knows? But we'll see. But SAFC, I think, is, especially in this game, going to want to kind of right the wrongs of this past Saturday, get back to winning ways. And with both of these, I think it's going to be really interesting to see how much does Loudoun and how much does Las Vegas kind of sit back, try and defend, nick goals on the counters, like we've seen, other teams do recently, Los Dos, Oakland Roots, because, and I'm almost maybe a bit of a sneak preview. I'm thinking I might look into, with SAFC playing so many home matches for the rest of the season, like 3 or 4, maybe 4 or 5 more home matches than away matches. I wonder if it might be a bit detrimental with teams coming to San Antonio and just trying to defend and get a point. But at the very least, I'm sure SAFC is going to be hungry to get wins. And I think if you see the first goal or two go in against either of these teams, it could snowball pretty easily.
Joe, what are you expecting in your match against the Switchbacks?
I'm expecting two teams that are going to try and right the ship significantly. Obviously, we talked about how El Paso hasn't won a match or is on a 4-match losing streak. They haven't scored in those 4 matches. But I think also Colorado Springs continues to struggle in what is this part of the season for them. In their last 4 matches, they've only been able to come up with a couple of draws. They lost to San Diego. They lost to Phoenix, both games on the road. They were able to tie against Charleston at home. And most recently, last weekend, they tied to OCSC out in the city of Irvine by the score of 3-3. So definitely coming into this week on Friday, both of these teams are going to try and get things going and look for the 3 points. It's important to note, Colorado Switchbacks have never beat El Paso Locomotive. But by the way things are going for El Paso, you might not want to think about or rely on that statistic because it could easily be broken. But no, definitely, obviously, it looks like Eder Borelli is back for El Paso Locomotive. Vital player for El Paso. He just opens up so many things for the Locomotive down that left flank. And he's putting off shoulder surgery until the end of the season. I talked with him today, and he said that basically he feels good enough to play, and he didn't want not he didn't want to, stop playing and end this season and leave everybody else behind in this part of the season. So he's going to play through it. He'll be back. And we'll see. Hopefully, if at bare minimum, I think it's important for El Paso to at least put one ball in the back of the net, despite this result or whatever the result might be. I think that's number one on their list. The defense is intact. I think Colorado obviously still has a very potent offensive attack. So
and they
the
just woke
defensive
up.
line, defensive line is, they scored 3 goals in their last match. So the defensive line, I think, is gonna have its work cut out for them. But they're back. Borelli's back. Foxy and Yuma are there. Matt Boehner are there. So hopefully it'll be a positive result for El Paso Locomotive out in Colorado Springs this Friday, not Saturday.
All right. So what are you all expecting the number of points that those two teams are going to be getting this week?
I'll go ahead and go with 7. I think someone maybe stumbles, draws. Could be, like I said earlier, one of the SAFC games, one of these teams coming to town and just trying to steal a point and actually succeeding. Could be, like we said, with the Switchbacks and the Locos, 2 teams struggling, trying to find their way again. Maybe that cancels each other out. Who knows?
Let's try and be a little bit more optimistic after the Texas teams struggled in the Golden Coast this past weekend. Let's go with 9 points. I think El Paso gets the win, obviously. San Antonio cruises with 2 victories against what I consider to be one MLS 2 side. And I can't believe you called the Las Vegas Lights an MLS 2 side. That's rather disrespectful of you, Jonathan.
They are literally like people training with LAFC who then go to Las Vegas. If that's not an MLS 2 side, I don't know what you want to call it.
No, but I guess the way the franchises operate, they just seem more of an independent entity.
Because I don't think it's a hybrid. I don't think it's a hybrid like RGV was. So
yeah,
just calling a spade a spade.
Yeah, no, I guess you're right. But no, I think of Las Vegas Lights and I see what they do and how they go about their business. I just don't see, I guess, optically that direct connection. Of course, I mean the player makeup and stuff like that. Yeah, you're absolutely right. I guess just when it comes to mine, I just don't think, like LA Galaxy 2, Sporting Kansas SC 2. You know what I mean? That direct relation. I just don't see it.
I mean, you wouldn't expect them to be an MLS 2 side with all the gimmicks and stuff, but on the field,
exactly.
I mean, you've got a lot of LAFC loanies and stuff. And I think it's going to be interesting to see where do they end up next year. I think I saw LAFC is going to be fielding their own MLS Next Pro team. So Vegas might actually have to start getting its own players again. We'll see. Or maybe Vegas doesn't show up anymore. I don't know.
Or they move to MLS Next. I mean, you never know.
Oh.
But anyway, guys, I think this is pretty much it for this week.
Hey! Did you give your prediction?
No, I did not.
Yeah, you thought you were going to get out of here without giving your prediction, didn't you, Mr. Ochoa? Didn't you?
Darn! Swing! Foiled again. Anyway, I'm going to go with 6 points. Somebody's going to drop the ball. And I have
it's not going to be RGV.
And it's not going to be RGV this time. I can assure you that. But so 6 points for me. I think you mentioned 7, Jonathan, and Joe mentioned 9. So we're a little bit positive this week. I don't think anybody won in this past week, right? I think because I had mentioned 2. And I think you all had gone very optimistic about it. So
yeah, nobody won 1. That's for damn sure.
If 3 points is very optimistic, sure.
Well, considering the circumstances, but guys, that's gonna do it for this week. If you guys have made it here this far, first of all, thank you. And be sure to check out the Striker on their website. Follow them on social media. On Twitter, on Facebook, on Instagram, and be sure to also go ahead and subscribe, guys. Go ahead and subscribe so you can get the coverage, not only of Texas teams like the USL, the MLS teams, but also you've got coverage for the NWSL with the Dash. You've got San Diego Wave, Atlanta United, and the other California teams as well, at the same price as when we were the Striker Texas. So you get more content for the same price. I don't think you can beat it. And obviously, we cannot do all of this without your support. As always, if you guys like this show, be sure to give it a rating on your favorite podcasting platform. Share it with your friends. Share it with your family. Share it with your dog. Heck, share it with your Tinder date. Make that your pickup line at this point. But let everybody know that we are here to talk and support our local soccer teams in the USL Championship, and of course throughout all of the soccer pyramid. Guys, anything else you want to add before we go?
Now more than ever, support local soccer.
Exactly. And be sure to be on the lookout for updates on that situation. But guys, thank you so much for everything. We'll see you on the next episode next week of the Striker Tejas Podcast. Have a good night.